We've done it. Australia has broken the social contract a country has with its citizens by making houses unaffordable for the average worker, destroying the hopes and opportunities for millions of Australians in the process. I'm Biko Konstantinos, and that's what we're going to talk about today. I ate a kid's meal at McDonald's today. His mother sure wasn't happy about it. And you won't be happy if you miss out on independent analysis and commentary from one of Australia's most renowned experts on hair thinning. Yours truly, baby. So give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll be your Tinkerbell if you be my Peter Pan. To consider this broken societal contract, I'm going to be responding to this recent interview with Ben Fordham and Tom Panos.
We're about to talk to the real estate guru Tom Panos about the Australian dream, owning your own home. And there are a lot of people just giving up on it because they just know that it's out of reach.
Just 30 to 40 years ago, a one-income household could easily afford to buy their own home, no matter what full-time job they had. And now, millions of full-time workers are giving up on ever being able to afford their own home. This is absolutely catastrophic.
The average home costs 13 times the average income.
13 times the average income is absolutely insane. The Demographia Housing Report classes anything above 5 times the average income to be severely unaffordable. So what does that make Australia? If you check out this research from McCrindle, in 1981, Sydney house prices were 5 times the average income, but every other city in Australia was under 3 times the average income. Basically, if you had a job and you could save the deposit, a house was yours and it wouldn't even take you long to pay off.
These days, it's expected to take young people more than 20 years to save up for a deposit on a unit. For a house, well, it probably doubles to about 40 years.
So many people arc up at these sort of statements, saying that home buyers just have to be more flexible, they have to look in the country, they have to learn to sacrifice and stop wasting their money and yada yada. But the fact is, anyone who purchased their home pretty much before COVID has absolutely no idea how difficult it is for home buyers right now. In the last few years, house prices have been rising more than the average worker earns at their job for an entire year. And on top of that, would-be homeowners are facing surging rents because Australia has some of the lowest vacancy rates in the entire world. Of course, mass immigration had no impact on that. And on top of that, Australia has some of the highest cost of living in the entire world. So basically, the value of every Australian dollar has continually been eroded, and over the last few years, it's been decimated. So people might say just save money, but the actual value of that money is being totally destroyed. This is a complete betrayal as far as I'm concerned. Young people have been handed a shit sandwich of a housing market, while property owners have won the lotto, especially if they are able to buy houses when they are ultra cheap and just ride the artificially inflated housing bubble.
In 2009, the average age of people taking out a home loan was 23. Now it's 32.
And if house prices keep rising way faster than wages, then the average age of people buying their first home will be when they're dead.
So it means more young people are renting, and there's a whole other challenge there to find a rental at the moment.
So we've taken away the opportunity for home ownership, but worse than that, we've made renting become like the Hunger Games.
Happy Hunger Games!
Mass immigration, Airbnb, and vacant properties have created so much demand for rentals that landlords now can pretty much charge whatever the hell they want. And if you can't find a rental, also too bad, you'll just have to live on the streets. How about that for the great Australian dream? If you're a renter in Australia, you've been completely abandoned.
They have abandoned us!
You've been really brutally honest about the fact that it's just out of reach, right? And people are going to be waiting and dreaming and just not getting in there.
Well, the thing is, it's not out of reach for everyone. If you come from a family who own a large property portfolio, you have a massive advantage over other would-be home buyers. Just say your parents own their family home plus an investment property. The increase in equity for those properties since COVID could have easily been around $600,000 to $800,000. So it'd be no issue for those parents to help out a child get their first home deposit. And this sort of help means that all the properties will be held by fewer people, while more and more people will be totally locked out.
So Ben, if I'm doing an auction, which is a small part of what I do, it's a Saturday job, and I go to an auction and I see a person that's under 30, unless I see a mum and dad near him, I'm thinking to myself, they have no chance.
This is spot on, and it's actually devastating. First homeowners, just relying on the deposit they've been able to save up, have very little chance of outbidding others in this speculative FOMO housing market. They're competing against cashed up property owners who've seen their equity skyrocket, as well as wealthy foreigners who don't care how much they pay, as well as property investors who are able to bid higher due to ultra generous tax concessions. It's like being in a sprinting race with Usain Bolt. You can try really hard, but you got no bloody chance.
It's very difficult. It's very sad to see that some of the people that are buying real estate now under 30s are people that are on OnlyFans.
Not just sad, it's a tragedy. We've made home ownership only available for those who already own property or for those earning extremely high incomes. If someone's not able to earn hundreds of thousands through OnlyFans or selling crack cocaine, what are they supposed to do? Work 3 jobs, don't have a life, only to see housing continue to get more and more out of reach. As a country, we've broken our social contract to provide affordable housing for all citizens. And when you break that social contract, people feel depressed, disillusioned, and abandoned by the country they live in. I mean, if you're a shareholder in a company, you own a small part of that company, and if the company does well, you also do well. But if millions of Australians can't afford any land in their country, they don't own any part of that country, and the country might look like it's doing well economically, but they will just fall further and further behind. That's a betrayal, my friends.
Back in my era, I remember the dream was you'd get to 60, 65 and you'd have your house paid off. That was the dream for the average Australian. I'm totally debt free.
When you don't have any housing debt, whether it be mortgage repayments or rent, life becomes so much simpler because you don't have a huge chunk coming out of your income to pay for housing. But this dream is being systematically taken away from Australians, so they'll either become renters for life or debt slaves for life.
These days, the dream is I'll have to get to that age to actually put a deposit down. So you can see why people are so disheartened and giving up.
Yep, and also extremely angry because you might be working next to someone in the exact same job, but because they own a property and you don't, they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars completely tax-free while you're stuck with surging rents and ridiculous cost of living.
And there are a lot of people now saying that they feel uncomfortable about the fact that it's only the inheritance that's going to turn them into a homeowner.
It's uncomfortable and it's wrong, but it's the reality and the only way many people are going to be able to buy a home. But people are living way longer, so you may not see any inheritance until you're 65 years old or something like that. But what if you aren't going to receive any inheritance? Housing should be available for all as far as I'm concerned and not dependent on how much your parents own. I'm all for doing well and thriving financially, but I'm not for a system that only provides opportunities for those who are already wealthy.
I know teachers and nurses who cannot rent or buy a home.
And not just teachers and nurses, many hardworking Australians have had their lives upended by this man-made housing crisis. We'd all love to go to a hospital and get great service from our nurses, but imagine some of those nurses are being forced to live in their cars. How are they supposed to provide effective frontline services? But more than that, why have we betrayed them and other workers through our failure to prioritise affordable housing?
There's no turning back. When a society says that we can't help a teacher or a nurse, there is no turning back for society. It's against the fabric of Australian society.
Well said, Tom Panos. But this is what happens when you turn property into a speculative investment solely for the purpose of creating wealth. Greed has now come before the well-being of our entire society.
Greed is abolishing the future.
Because it changes everything. When you become a property owner, I think your confidence levels rise because you think, all right, well, I've got that security. I've got that place. I've got a roof over my head. I know where I'm sleeping at night, and it changes your life.
Of course it changes your life. Australia's birth rates are falling off a cliff, and I believe a major reason for this is housing instability. When you own a home, your repayments eventually start to reduce, and as your income keeps rising, your financial situation continues to improve. But if you don't own a home, your housing expenses, i.e. rent, continues increasing. So not only don't you own an appreciating asset that surges in value due to government and central bank policies, but you also have to deal with increased expenses, meaning your financial situation can actually get worse.
And I don't know if we're going to touch on immigration, but I can tell you, it's like having a hotel, 1,000 rooms in the hotel, and the hotel owner says, don't worry, let them come in, we'll find a space. So you get 1,500 people in a hotel with 1,000 rooms. Oh, where are you going to put them? You're going to put them in the reception lounge.
Some of them end up sleeping in the car park.
This is a great analogy for the recent mass migration we've seen in Australia. Forget about planning to see that we've got enough housing for everyone that's coming in. We'll just open the floodgates and see what's happened. And where's that gotten us? People living in their cars or in tents who have never been homeless before in their lives. What a way to make a screwed up housing market even worse.
And the other way of looking at the whole migration argument, it's the quality of life you're offering to the people who come here as well. What's the point in inviting people to Australia if they turn up here and there's nowhere for them to live?
Why is the only economic model in Australia to pump immigration? Australians didn't ask for it, and the vast majority of Australians don't want it. So what's the justification?
Immigration helps a country progress. However, I think pressing the pause button and saying, hey, if we've only got 1,000 houses, why are we letting 1,500 people in, right?
Non-homeowners and future generations have been totally betrayed by years of policy creating inflated demand for housing. We've got some of the highest levels of migration in the entire world. We allow foreign ownership of our property. We incentivize property speculation through ultra-generous taxation concessions. We encourage ever-increasing debt into housing by keeping the cash rate at recklessly low levels. And we continue to push nonsensical policies like first homeowners grant that only serve to make houses more expensive. As a country, we have a social contract with our citizens to provide affordable housing so everyone at least can have a safe and secure place to live. We've well and truly broken that contract. I'm Biko Konstantinos.